make Steam achievements. There's 164. My God. We learned how to make Steam point shop items. We learned how to make Steam trading cards, and then we found out as developers, when someone buys a Steam trading card from another person, you get a little cut of the money as a Steam dev. I didn't know that. That's really cool. So that means that you want to make really cool Steam trading cards so that people really want to trade them around because you're making a little bit of money off of that. That's really helpful for an indie studio. I learned that when you add controller support to your game, it's really important for people that have physical disabilities. I didn't know that before I made an indie game. I was in, AAA. I had no idea that that was the case. So we started adding, controller support to every game that we work on now. The accessibility is built right in because they can take that controller, remap it to whatever devices they use, and they can play your game. I had no clue. This game taught me all of this. It taught me everything that I needed to know to go and make something better. And that's what you need to make. You got to go make your Champions of Breakfast. You got to go make your Fart Hotel. Whatever it's going to be, make that game and then make a better one. Because you can do that. Nothing is stopping you from doing that. Nothing at all. Now, the next thing of this, and this is the real big one. After hearing all of that, you're like, man, I want to go make games. Like some of you guys are like, oh man, I got to go do this, right? Don't quit your day job. Don't do it. Do this on the side. Do it as a side project. Go to work every day. Have that financial backing that keeps you afloat. Go home, and instead of sitting on the couch and watching Netflix, take 2 to 4 hours a day, whatever it's going to be, any amount of time that you can devote to this, and work on your game. You won't know what to do at first. It's going to be frustrating at first. It's going to drive you nuts at first. But if you get over that and you learn some stuff, and you learn like, oh man, I'm actually making something, the moment that you make a character walk on screen, you've already won. That's all you need to do. Yeah, oops, already quit my day job. Don't do it, dude. Don't quit your day job. Keep your day job. It's going to help you to be financially stable while you're doing this, so you're not going to stress out. You're not going to worry about, oh my God, I have to do this kind of thing. Like, just keep your job. Do this kind of thing. And eventually, one day, if you do it long enough, there's a chance that you'll be able to do it full time. Not everyone gets to, but you have the chance. And the more that you do this, the more that you plan for it, the more that you get better at this, the more small games that you release, the more game jams that you're a part of, the higher that chance gets. That's the only way. Plan on your future by doing this. Invest in yourself by learning these skills. It's the whole point of this. So from there, let's take a look at this. Like, how do you... I put all these different sections in here. It's not just about what skills you need. Like, what kind of game should you make? How do you pick the kind of game you want to make? Like, oh, I want to make an MMO. Don't. Don't make an MMO as your first game. Make a little arcade game. Make a platform. Make something small. Something you can build in under a month. Like I was saying with Champions of Breakfast. Do that. You can do that. There's nothing stopping you from doing that other than fear of not doing it well enough. Someone on the internet making fun of you. I'm going to be honest with you. No matter what you make, someone on the internet's going to make fun of you. But it's yours, and they didn't make it. So, get on, right? Like, it's super good that way. It's actually really fantastic that you can say, I made this thing. So outside of that, let's go to how do you build a community? Tons and tons of social media stuff now. You've got Discord, Twitter, Instagram, Steam, GameJolt, itch.io, Twitch, YouTube, Reddit, like all these, and Guilded now, You've got all these different places that you can build community. Every time I go live on Twitch, I announce it on Twitter and Discord. Every time I make something in Heartbound and we release a new patch, it goes on every one of our social media sites. Every single thing I do ties into every single other thing that I do because you're an indie dev. No one is shouting from the top of the mountain for you. You're not AAA. You don't have piles of money. You don't have infinite cash to throw into games. The average amount of money used on a game for its release, like for the actual marketing for it, is a third of the cost of the actual game itself. You don't have that. So it's got to be you. Stand at the top of the mountain and scream about your game. Scream on every social media platform. Tell every single person about it. Go into your comments on, social media and actually respond to people. Tell everyone, what did you feel about the game? What did you think about the game? Get that feedback and don't get weird about it. Don't get mad about it. Accept it and then change yourself as a developer to get better. There's tons of times where people have come to me and they're like, your game sucks, right? I'm like, well, why does it suck? And then they tell me and I'm like, you're right. My game does suck. I'm going to go fix that. And then I do, and then that person has a better experience. I grow as a developer. Everybody wins, right? Now, that isn't to say that every amount of feedback is good, because sometimes it's pretty terrible. Like, I'll give you an example. I had a person come to me and they go, your game has no story in it. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean my game has no story in it, right? But the whole game is story. It's a narrative RPG, right? You're fighting monsters and talking. It's 99% of the whole thing. And they go, and I talk to them like 20 minutes. It's like 20 minutes back and forth with this person. And then they finally go, Well, I don't like reading, so I skipped it. Don't like reading, so I skipped it. Damn it. So not all feedback is good. Sometimes it's, sometimes it's like that. But you should always listen. I think that's the biggest thing. It's not all feedback is good, but all feedback matters. You could get that from someone to go, wow, that's an interesting take, thank you. But at least you heard them out, because it could have been something important. There were other times where people gave me feedback and they're like, this area of the game feels terrible. The developer is clearly just pandering for time so that I can't refund the game. Really spicy take, right? In reality, it was a maze that had like shadow all over it, and you had to like find your way through the maze, and objectively it sucked. It wasn't fun. So I got rid of it. Bad reviews disappeared. Everybody was happy. I learned something about player experience and valuing the time of the players a little bit more, and not putting those types of mazes into the game because they just aren't fun. It's just filler. What's the point, right? So learn something from your players, always, 100%. Some people only understand environmental storytelling or cutscene. It's true. The funny thing is all of it is cutscenes. It's just dialogue, because we're in India. I can't afford like 10,000 lines of voiceover. We've already got it translated into 6 languages. Like it's out there in a bunch of them, but like, dude, voiceover that's something else. That's really expensive. So anyway, tools. People fight about this all the time. What's the best engine? What's the best engine? I'm only going to use Game Maker Studio. I'm only going to use Unity. Whatever engine you want to use is the best engine, based on the type of game you're making. Different engines have different skills and abilities, that make them better suited for different types of games. Let's take a look at Risk of Rain. How many of you guys have played Risk of Rain or Risk of Rain 2? Let's go take a look at this. This game is sick. I love this game. Risk of Rain is an awesome game. It was made in Game Maker Studio and MS Paint. That's not a joke. They literally used MS Paint to make this game. It's phenomenal, frankly. It's a fantastic game. And he used MS Paint. Your tools don't matter. Whatever works for you is what matters. Whatever works for you, whatever works for your workflow. It doesn't matter if it costs a lot of money, it doesn't matter if it's free, none of that matters. The only thing that matters is that it gets out of the way and allows you to make the kind of game you're trying to make. So Game Maker Studio is really, really good at making 2D games. It's not very good at 3D. Godot is really good at 2D and 3D games. Unity is really good at 3D stuff, but it's not as good for 2D games. And then there's financial stuff on top of it. Unreal is great at 3D. But you can look at each one of these, and I've got a couple of lists in here of different games that they've made. So you've got, Godot is actually the new kid on the block, but it's fantastic. It's got a lot of community support. It's really nice, and it's free and open source. Then you've got Game Maker Studio. It's $100, but it's only a one-time payment. No royalties whatsoever. You've got Unity. Unity is really cool. It's really good, but it's got royalties after a certain amount. It's like a seat license that you have to do. Unreal Engine has royalties, but it's after $1 million. And if you made $1 million off your game, you're probably silent anyway, and you probably feel fine. So it's not going to matter much to you, especially if you're a small team, right? But you can see the different types of games that they've made, too. So, like, with Unity, you've got Hearthstone and Cuphead and Wizard of Legend. Those are sick games. Hollow Knight, too. Unreal, the only 2D game that I've seen that came out of Unreal is really surprising to me. It's Octopath Traveler. And I think it was probably for the lighting and particle effects, because that game looks sick. But it's all 2D. It's like 2.5D stuff for everything. You've also got things like Fortnite, Conan Exiles. With Game Maker Studio, you've got all the indie darlings, right? You've got things like Hyper Light Drifter, Risk of Rain, Nuclear Throne, Undertale. Awesome games came out of Game Maker Studio. It's great at 2D pixel art games. And then you've got other free stuff. Ren'Py. Ren'Py is specifically made for visual novels. That's what it's for. It's made in Python. It's free. And that's how Doki Doki Literature Club came to be. It was made in Ren'Py. It's awesome stuff. So, don't worry about what the best engine is. Worry about the kind of game you want to make, and then choose the right tool for the job. That's the whole point of this, is you want to choose the right tool for the job, choose the right engine for the kind of game you're trying to make, right? The next one, there's no best art program. No best art program at all. We use Aseprite. We use Aseprite because it's really good at making, pixel art animations. I really enjoy that. Super fun thing. Do you see future in VR games? I do. I see a future in that, but not until it's like nerve gear where it's like hooked up to your brain. And for me, it's kind of tough because VR games, I can't play them. I get motion sick really bad. Like the moment I put the headset on, I'm vomiting all over the room. It's great. It's not what you want, right? But I do see a future of VR games. But I think what we have right now, the things like the Oculus and stuff like that, all the devices that we're wearing, it feels like Laserdisc to me. It feels like that middle ground before we have true full dive immersion. You know what I mean? You've got that kind of interim technology where they're playing around with it, and then eventually they're going to be like, whatever, we're just going to hook it up to your brain. I'm waiting for that. That's what I want. I just want to, like, load into video games and be done for the day. In any case, sounds like a game I could get into. Hell yeah, dude. But yeah, so Sprite's great for 2D stuff. And it's $20, or, and this is the cool thing, you can compile it from their GitHub for free, and they let you do that. So these guys not only sell it, but they give it away if you want to go through and compile it from their GitHub. That's fantastic. That's really cool. GIMP, free. It's free Photoshop. It's not as good as Photoshop in some reason, like for some things, but it's fantastic. If you really want to use, like, you know, photo manipulation software, use GIMP. There's nothing wrong with that. Blender used to be, like, sad. It used to, like, Maya used to just dominate over Blender all the time, and Blender wins now. Blender is amazing for 3D modeling now. It's used for everything. It plugs into everything. It's gotten so powerful over the years. And because of that, it's fantastic for making 3D games. Use it. It's free. It's totally free. There's no best music program. Our musician's name is Stein von Wakern. All this music you hear is from Stein. All of it. And like I said, we've got about 100 songs in the OST. All this is from Heartbound. All of it's from Stein. Stein is a wizard. Absolute wizard. Family Studio is really good for making NES games. That's a free tool that you can use, or like NES-style chiptunes. If you love that old, like, NES-style music, like the old chiptune stuff, use Family Studio. It's fantastic for that. Anvil's the same, but for MIDI. And then the big one, and this is the expensive one because it's, you know, it's $100, is FL Studio. All of our music is made in FL Studio. Doesn't mean you need to use this. Go and make something in Family Studio. It's just as good, and it's free, and you can use it for all kinds of stuff. In fact, let's take a look at a game real quick. I'm going to show you something really small that I love. How many of you guys have ever played Downwell? Check this game out, dude. Listen to this music. Love this game. It's hard. Downwell is amazing. The music is fantastic. The effects are really clean and really good and readable. And it's all using 3 colors, black, white, and 1 accent color, and that's it. This is a game that is attainable for any of you. You can make this. There's nothing stopping you from making this. It's an easy and simple idea, executed well, and really clean, with simple graphics, simple audio. All of this stuff is really easy to make. You just have to do it. And it's, at first you're not going to know what you're doing, but you can do this. And you can learn while you're doing this. And then eventually you can have a game like this that's pretty sick. You know, it's a fun game. It's really cool. Downwell's awesome. Good. It's up on Steam. Play this game. Do it. It's $3. It's $3. But yeah, do that. Seriously. So you can use these types of tools to make that stuff. Then you're like, okay, well, I don't have $100 for FL Studio, and I want to use FL Studio. How to raise money? There's a lot of different ways to do it. There's a massive amount. Just like I said before, don't quit your day job. Keep that day job. Use it to fund your gaming development habit, right? Because at first it is. It's going to be a hobby. It's going to be a hobby at first. You're going to learn this stuff, and you're going to get better at doing this. And eventually you'll make something that might stand on its own and make money back. But make it for the love of the game at first. Then one day it might be your job. That's how all hobbies go. You know, all hobbies are you doing something really cool, and then you're like, wait a minute, I'm really good at making this. Maybe I'll make this my job now. And you can do that with game dev. So raising money at first is really going to be about keeping that day job. After that, you can raise funds from a bunch of different places outside, and the big one is Twitch. If I didn't have Twitch, we wouldn't be a studio. And it's not just because of the income from Twitch. It's actually because of the amount of voice that Twitch gives you as a game developer. When I'm streaming on Twitch, we sell 400% more copies of Heartbound. Every hour on the hour. 400% more copies than if I wasn't streaming. And that is tried and true every day for the last 5 years. If I miss a day of streaming, that number goes down. And this is a really good example of you are an indie. Stand on the top of the mountain and shout about your game. Twitch will let you do that. It is fantastic for that. It is very, very good for getting the word out about what you're doing. And we're evidence of that. And I'm not special for doing what we've done. I'm not, you know, God's gift to gaming or game development or anything like that. I just tried something and it worked. And I know other people can do it too. Because there was no special time period that allowed us to do this. There was no special window that we had to work our way through. Now is the time to keep doing this stuff or to start doing this stuff, because it's going to carry. It's going to snowball. And unless you start now, you're never going to start. So do it. Do it. Stop talking about doing it. Do it. Nothing's stopping you. And we have a category now, software and game development. You can go to this category and find other game developers. And that doesn't just mean programmers. That means voice actors. That means writers. That means pixel artists. That means people making pen and paper games. That means people making card games. That means every kind of game you can think of. That's what software and game development is for. And we campaigned to have this made for about 8 months, and Twitch finally did it. So get in here and be part of this category. If you want to make games, this is the place to be. And don't get discouraged at first. Don't just get discouraged if you've only got 2 viewers and your mom and your dog, because that's how I started too. That's how every single person in here started. And it's taken me 5 years of doing this to get to where I am today. And there's nothing stopping you from doing the same. If you really want to do it, do it. Make games. Make cool stuff. Other people will find out, as long as you're telling people about it. Now, outside of that, and this is a cautionary tale, you don't need a publisher. So many people get stuck in this and go, well, I can't make games, someone's got to publish me. No. You used to need a publisher because you had to release on a console. Back in the day, when you wanted to release on Super Nintendo, you had to pay Mr. Nintendo 30% of your revenue because they had to go and make the physical cartridges. Why? You don't need that anymore. No one needs that. You can distribute it yourself. You can put it up on Steam, you can put it up on itch.io, on GameJolt, on Humble Bundle, every one of these different places, and you can do it without paying anyone. So do it. You don't need a publisher. And many, many indie studios that I know went, oh man, I went with a publisher because we thought it was the best idea, and they took 70% of our income. The biggest question you have to ask, and this is the big one in here, will the help of the publisher lead to profits above and beyond the revenue cut that they take? If you don't know the answer, or if the answer is no, then you don't need a publisher. And that's it. Don't fall for the trap. They're vampires. Also, I love What We Do in the Shadows. Watch that show. It's amazing.
It's fucking amazing.
Good stuff.
So funny.
Next one is Kickstarter. So Kickstarter isn't... This is going to seem weird. Kickstarter isn't for making money. That's not what it's for. Kickstarter is for raising awareness about what you're making. It's not for making money at all. So when I put Heartbound up on Kickstarter, we did a bunch of analytics to find out, like, oh man, how much money could we make within a certain time period? Like average, right? Like how much do you think we're going to make within a certain amount of time? And it came out to about $5,000. Heartbound is a game that's been in development now for 5 years. We have it out in early access. People buy it and all that kind of stuff. But $5,000 is not going to make a game with a bunch of people working it full time for 5 years. It's not going to happen. So why did we put it up for that much? Because we knew from the analytics that it was a likely amount to reach that within 24 hours. Why do you want to reach that in 24 hours? Because of the news. You want to be that sensationalist indie. You got your game funded in 24 hours. Everyone wants to pick that up. IGN immediately picked us up and wrote a story on it. That's what you use Kickstarter for. You use it to raise awareness for what you're doing. You use it as a platform for media to pick you up and talk about you. That helps you amplify everything that you're doing to tell the rest of the internet what it is that you're making. Use Kickstarter for that. Great. It's fantastic. And you get to give out cool rewards to the people that back you, too. It's a really awesome thing to do. Builds community, builds awareness of what you're making, and also makes a little bit of money on the site. But it's not, primarily not, for making money. That's not what it's for. It's for raising awareness. Merchandise. Make stuff. Do it. We have a bunch of merchandise. Look, it's merch. Wow. Look, it's my face all over a cup. Horrifying. Nobody wants that. They still buy it anyway. But yeah, make merch. Merch is cool. We actually use a shipping service called Pirate Ship, which is cool. I like them because they're very on brand. But we have a bunch of different manufacturers and stuff that I put up on this, and it's good to release these things. The margins on them, though, are very small, generally. You don't make a huge amount of money off of merch, but you do get to see people really happy about what they're buying, right? When somebody throws donations at you, you can't really give them anything back. When they're buying something, they may feel really cool about it. They may actually get into it and be like, oh man, I've got this cool sticker. I'm going to go put it on my computer and people are going to see it and I'm going to talk about it. Merchandise is cool because it lets your fans show off. That's more than anything else. And it feels good, man. So make it. Even if it's silly, just little stickers, just make them. Make them, get them out there. It's not super expensive to do. It's really cheap. So outside of that, coffee. Good way to make money. Not Patreon. Patreon takes 8%. Patreon, if you're a founder, takes 5%. Coffee takes $4.50 a month. It's the exact same service. There are other services like this that exist out there on the internet. Don't use Patreon. Use Coffee. Cheaper. And I'm not saying none of these are sponsored, by the way. Not a single one of them. Not a single one of these is sponsored. This is all the best way to run this as an indie trying to live off of ramen. That's it. That's what it is. You know, you want to retain as much money as you possibly can when you're indie, and this is a good way to do it. So outside of that, where should you launch your game? You're like, okay, I've got it. I've got a demo. Everything is out there. People know about what I'm doing. Where do I send my stuff? Steam. Steam is the big one. Why is Steam the big one? Let's bring out the good old MS Paint. MS Paint, the ultimate. Steam takes 30%. And you're like, wait a minute, you said publisher's bad. 30% bad. 30% is bad. Except for with Steam. Steam lets you do something that's a magic trick. They let you sell Steam keys. How much money does Steam take when you sell a Steam key? %0. If you take a Steam key, which you get for free, you can order as many of them as you want as a developer on Steam. If you take that Steam key and you sell it on another platform, Steam takes nothing. 0%. They take absolutely nothing. That is phenomenal. So what you do is you take your Steam keys and you put them on Humble Bundle, and you put them on Game Jolt, and you put them on itch.io, and you sell your game on all these different platforms, and some of those sales have no overhead whatsoever. And then on top of it, you have one center of distribution, which is Steam, which means every time someone buys the game, all the updates come from Steam. You don't have to manage all these different files in different locations. It's all just on Steam. It's easy for you. Super simple stuff. And the Steam keys make it free. Super good way to do it. So then outside of that, you're like, okay, well, that's neat. Well, no one can find my game on Steam. Steam has a way to fix this called visibility rounds. When you release your game, you get 5 of these. 5 VRs, right? 5 visibility rounds that get released. And when you use a VR, you get 500,000 impressions on front page of Steam. Is that legal by Steam rules? That's what Steam does. That's part of their service. That's 100% what Steam wants you to do. They want you to sell Steam keys on other platforms. I believe in their agreement, the only thing that they asked for you to do is it cannot be cheaper on other platforms than it is on Steam. That's it. That's the only part of the agreement. Do this. This is absolutely allowed. But yeah, the Steam visibility rounds let you be on front page of Steam for 500,000 impressions. That is amazing. And you get to do that 5 times. And when you leave early access, they give you one that gives you like 1 million impressions on first page, on front page, and it doesn't even count as one of the VRs. So when people talk about like, oh, well, Steam doesn't do anything for visibility, use their tools. They have them there. Every time we enter a Steam sale, we sell basically 90% of our copies for the year during Steam sales. And you can go and join those or leave those at will. Like, you get to choose if you want to be a part of that or not. They don't do that to you. They don't set the rates for you. You do it as the developer. Now, people go like, oh, well, that's cool. That's all fine. But like, you know, what about people that steal from us, right? Like, what about pirates? And, you know, I'm Pirate Software, so I should know a thing or two about piracy, right? There's a little bit about piracy with the name, right? So let's talk about piracy for a moment. Like, oh, you know, piracy, people are going to steal my game. Like, Steam doesn't really have any protections in place for it. You're right. But what is piracy really an issue of? My chat knows. You guys know what piracy really is an issue of? Because it's not people being jerks. It's an issue of cost or distribution. If people can't buy your game because it's too expensive, they're going to pirate it. If people can't get your game because they can't obtain it, they're going to pirate it. Access and cost. The whole thing. So a really good example of this is Brazil. Our game, Heartbound, took off in Brazil before it took off anywhere else in the entire world. The average household income in Brazil is 880 to 1100 BRL. It's about 180 US dollars. If you're telling them to buy a $60 game, you're saying, give me a third of your household's monthly income with 2 working parents. Of course they're going to pirate your game. So what do we do to fix that? Let's go pull this up. First off, we localize the game into Brazilian Portuguese. Then, using Steam, we localize the price. You can see here the Brazilian real, it's only 20 BRL, which is about $4 US. 58% off in Brazil. How much money do you think we make off Brazil? Knowing that the economic constraints there, the fact that it's not a huge amount of income, the fact that we've released the game there for 60% off. How much do you think it is? 20 to 25% of our studio's monthly income comes from Brazil. 20 to 25% of our studio's entire monthly income comes from Brazil. and that's a country that's generally overlooked because of piracy, why would you overlook it? Don't. Use Steam. Use Steam and localize your prices and localize your games. If you do this, those communities can support you, and you're supporting them by giving them a game that they can actually buy that makes sense for them to buy. So they don't have to go to a third-party site and get malware. That's what this is all about. That's the whole point. You will make money. You don't have to worry about it. Put your game up there and make the price fair. And you're giving a better experience to people that otherwise wouldn't be able to have it. And you'll make money out of it. So yeah, you guys are talking about Argentina, right? Argentina is $1.13, right? Argentina, $1.13. You're like, oh, well, people just VPN and buy it there. I think we've sold like 2 copies in Argentina, which is wild. Does our team manually set the localized prices? For some of them, yeah. For the localizations that we do, which is Brazilian, Portuguese, Russian, French, Spanish, and Japanese, those ones, we manually set them. Because I want to make sure that they're correct. And I talk to people that are in those areas, and I pay attention to the economics for that stuff. And when you set it, Steam automatically starts doing the converted price automatically from there. So I don't have to worry about fluctuating prices, because Steam automatically handles that for you. Once you set this value, you're done, basically. They handle everything for you afterwards, which is great. It's really fantastic. And they can, they can do all this automatically for you as well if you don't want to touch any of it. They do it for you if you don't want to touch it. Can you set it for free to a single country? I don't know. We're trying to find that out right now, actually. We're trying to find that out. We'll figure it out. I'm hoping to find out. I've got like some feelers out to Steam to see if we can do that. But yeah, so with Argentina, people are like, oh man, it's prices there. People are going to VPN over it. Steam will let you do that. If you try to VPN over, it's actually based on where your payment processor is. So you can't just VPN around it, basically. And if you do switch your payment processor around a whole bunch, Steam will eventually ban your account, and then you lose all your Steam games. So people don't want to do that. They don't do it. And I know they don't do it because we've sold about 26,000 copies of Heartbound. There's about 100,000 wish lists. And I think we sold 2 copies in Argentina ever. Which is, to me, is pretty funny. Like, the cheapest price on there, we've only ever sold 2 copies. So, not really an issue. But yeah, with all that in mind, man, you have everything you need to make games now. And it's all on the website, develop.games. And there's no ads on here. The only thing that there is me. At the bottom. Waving at you. I'm there. Just many hundreds of thousands of layers of me going back into the infinite behind my website. But yeah, that's it. That's what it is. When I put ads, because making games and seeing ads for that stuff up here just feels gross to me. Making games is hard enough. I don't want to put a bunch of stupid ads on here. I don't want to monetize this in a way that is gross. I don't want to put a paywall in front of it. I don't want to do any of that stuff. It's gross, dude. It's gross. What about game revenue taxation? What about game revenue taxation? Does Steam take care of all of that? Steam handles... So what I end up getting is a royalty check, right? So a royalty check from the sales of the game. Steam handles other stuff, like VAT and all that other things. Like, I don't have to deal with any of that. I just have to pay the federal government and my state if we had state income tax, which we don't. Washington. Hey, indie state. It's a good day. Good state to be. But yeah... Steam takes care of all the other stuff. I just have to pay federal taxes on income tax. That's it. That's all I have to do. Which is nice. And then my tax man does it, so I don't have to look at it, because it's scary. Is that Viking Blonde? Don't let Thor fool you. Making games is dead easy. Just push the Make Game button in Game Maker. Yeah, dude, just press Make Game, and you're done. And it's over. You don't have to do anything else. No international considerations. No. When you're launching on Steam, it launches internationally already. So, like, we sell copies of Heartbound in Japan, for instance. And Steam handles all of that stuff for it, which is really nice for you. As an indie dev, nothing could be more powerful than that. I think, effectively, Steam is probably the best publisher that exists right now. And it makes it really easy as an indie dev. And I think the buy-in is like $100 in total. And if you put your game out on Game Jolt, for instance, like, Game Jolt is really good for launching like demos. It's really fantastic for that. Look how nice the page looks. Make a sick looking page on here. This is the one for Heartbound. And you can make this stuff look really cool, and you can put your demo up here, and people can go and support you. And when they do support you, if you're streaming on Twitch and you've got stuff up on GameJolt, you do all this kind of thing, you can take that money and then go put your game up on Steam, and then the ball starts rolling. Because then you have a base camp. You have a place to put builds. You have a place to interact with your community. You have a place to have a sold game. And that's something that's phenomenal. It's something that you just can't really get anywhere else to the same degree. And you guys are talking about Epic storage tools. Do they compare to all the stuff Steam does? Epic loses right out the outset even just with one feature, and that's the Steam key. The moment that you say Steam key, Epic Games loses in comparison, unfortunately. And it's just because the Steam key can be sold anywhere for free. As an indie, nothing beats that. That is phenomenal. Oh god, you found the channel. What's up? Hi. Yeah, it's Pirate Software / Pirate Software. It's me. Hello. But yeah, so like, I think as we wrap this up, we've got about 4 minutes left. I think the one thing that I want to impose on every single one of you is don't wait to make games. You're not too old to make them. You're not too young to make them. I waited most of my life in AAA, like 7 years in AAA, before I realized that I could just go home and make indie games, and that nothing was stopping me. You have access to all of human knowledge on the internet, and you can do this. You can absolutely do this. And we have a really pretty looking game right now. If we go and look up Heartbound right now, you can see this. What we've made now looks just great, right? We've got this cool trailer and all this cool stuff and all these nice cutscenes and everything that we have on here, and it looks fantastic. But it didn't always look that way. Let me go pull this up real fast. Where is it? I'm going to show you something. The screen's going to go black for a second. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. Where is it? This, what you're about to see, is horrifying. This is what Heartbound looks like today, with all these animations and all these different cutscenes and all this different stuff that we have here, right? This is what it looked like originally. Let me pull this up. This was the first build of Heartbound. Look at him. He is a potato. Look at him. My god. Every game looks like this in the beginning. Every game looks like this in the beginning. I have 2D pixel art ray trace lighting in my game now. This is what it started as. You're gonna make a game that looks like this at first, and it's okay. Don't be down on yourself. Just make it better each day. Just make it better each day. That's it. Go make Potato Simulator, dude. Make it. I believe in you. You can do this. Yeah, RTX off. Exactly, dude. From all your games, what would be your monthly earnings? From all my games, monthly earnings? I don't actually know. I basically take all of my money that I make and I put it back into the studio. Everything. I try to pay out to our artists and musician as much as I possibly can. I don't make a huge amount of money. I used to make money. I used to work for the federal government, right? Like I was a hacker for the Department of Energy. I was a big nerd. But like, if I wanted to keep making huge amounts of money, I would have kept that job. I want to enjoy myself. I want to make games. I want to make things that other people can enjoy and do this type of thing. So that's what I do. As long as I make enough money to pay my bills, I don't care about anything else. That's just kind of how I live. If that makes sense. It's kind of a weird one, but yeah. Did you hack any nukes? No. And if I did, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But yeah, that's it, dude. That's the whole deal. Well, it's been fun. Enjoy Twitch Fridge. You guys are amazing. Thank you for being here. Goodbye, everyone on the Twitch Fridge. I think we actually have 1 minute left. I'm just going to do this for a minute. Actually, wait. Nope, my ferrets are all asleep. Unfortunate. I was going to show you the ferrets. They have a big cage over here. They're quite a lot of ferrets, but they're all sleeping inside of that hammock. You can see it's like... Poor ferrets. All sleeping. It's not time for them to be awake. Anyway, goodbye, everyone. Goodbye. You guys are amazing.
Back in the day, a Super Nintendo game was $69.95. That's how much Secret of Mana cost when it first came out. Let's go pull this up. Inflation calculator. And
I did the exact same fucking shit. Exactly.
And what year did Secret of Mana launch?
Was it
August
95?
6, 1993. And we're gonna go from August 1993, and we'll go to April of 2024. And we're
probably,
gonna say
what, $140?
$69.95. If you were to buy that Super Nintendo game today, in today's currency, it'd be $151.47.
Here's the funny thing. You go to one of those vintage game stores, and it will be.
That would be the cost. Dramatically higher, right? But the reason they were so expensive back then is because of physical distribution. That's the reason. We don't have that anymore. You don't have to make a cartridge. You don't have to put it on a store shelf. You don't have to physically ship it. You don't have to do any of that. We have digital distribution. It costs nothing. I have sold tens of thousands of copies of Heartbound, and it has cost us nothing. So when we're looking at this versus that, It doesn't make sense. We can't even make a comparison there. Steam still takes 30%? No, they...
I still think that obviously, like, making a game costs more money, and so, like, if you're paying developers, like, the cost of making a game is not entirely in distribution. It's also in development, it's in, you know, any sort of testing, paying for voice acting, anything like that. All of these things also come into play. Obviously, you don't have physical distribution, but you have a bunch of other things as well.
Don't. When I make a Steam key, and that key is for a $10 game, and then I sell that on Humble Bundle, what is the percentage that Steam takes from me? 0%. Steam only takes 30% of the sales you have on the Steam platform. Only on the Steam platform. Further than that, if you have trading cards for your game, which you always do, you make those yourself, very easy. Whenever one of those sells between one player and another, there's a community market fee. Steam gives...
He's exposing the banana game. right now. That's what's going on. Yep. You also have 100x more people buying games now, though. If you have 100x more people buying games, then you also have to have more customer service. Now, I actually think that is the strongest argument against increasing the price of games. It's actually not inflation or physical goods. It's the amount of people that are buying them. Because if you can sell something 100 times, you know, you have to make this much money. But if you can sell something 1,000 times, you don't have to make that much money, right? You have to make a lot less. Or you don't have to make quite as much. No, yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, there's a bigger market available to devs. Yeah, exactly.
The developer, the community market fee, that ain't 30%. That's a lot less than 30%.
Yeah.
Depending on how you strategize your sales, it's dramatically less than 30%. And Steam does not charge you for the distribution of your patches or the game itself outside of that 30%. Thank God. Isn't that literally pennies, though? No. No. Very funny. So the way that I look at this right now is this doesn't make sense. We live in a time of digital distribution, and the way that I see sales of games is like this. If it's $1, people see it as shovelware. If it's $3, they see it as an arcade game. $5 is a premium arcade game. $10 is an indie game. $20 is a premium indie game. Anything anywhere from 10 to 20 is a premium indie game.
Yeah.
$40 is a day game. $60 is AAA. And anything 70 or above is a scale. Yeah. That's the...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about $130 though? Where does that fall on the list? No, he's definitely right about this, like 100%. Like the $70 games, here's the thing, is that a lot of the development costs
rare merchandise
that make it to where they have to charge $70 for a game.
Yeah, like rare signed merchandise that will gain value over time. Like buying Charizard for the first time back in the 90s. That would be perfect. Especially if I'm getting like a Pip-Boy, like a semi-functional Pip-Boy, or something that looks cool for a cosplay, like awesome, yeah, I'll pay extra. I'll pay more than $70, but no. Just if it's a bunch of cosmetics, just like, oh, there's gonna be the like 1 or 2 quests. No, I don't. Just make a good game, and make it to where. I mean, they're gonna do that anyway, but like, just don't have that. If it's cosmetics and people want to pay a bunch of money for it, cool, go for it. But make sure it's a good game. Not some BS, some bullshit that is just one giant cash grab, and just disappointing. Can't refund it. I mean, if you truly don't like it, like within the allotted time to refund it, yeah, like go ahead and do it. But it's been disappointed too many times. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of all these crappy games by developers that like made my childhood. Like, it's getting old.
Game are things that consumers don't see a lot of value in. That's the big problem. So you have these games that are like trying to focus on, you know, making things hyper realistic, or, you know, the way their loading screens work or something like that. And this is a focus for the developer, and they say, oh, well, we put all this money into this, so the game has to be more money. But the real thing is that people don't give a shit about that. They don't care about that in the first place. They just wanted to play the game simply, and that's it. True, gaming's indie games. Yes, exactly. Who cares about popular actors as voice actors? Yes, that's not that important. So I think that a lot of the reasoning for why games are getting more expensive, I am of the mind that whenever we are very old, we will look back fondly on the time that games were only $100. Because inflation exists, it affects every single thing inside of the market. Everything in the market is affected by inflation, whether it's video games, fast food, cars, or gasoline. If you look over the course of time, the prices have gone up like this, and it has never gone down other than like a slight blip or something like that. So whenever I see this and I see games just getting more and more expensive, that's what's going to happen no matter what. But the truth is that there is a lot of psychology in pricing. There definitely is. And it's crazy how people see cheap games and they think the games are just bad.
General way that people feel about games that I've seen. So
Some of the best games I played.
This is the limit. Anything above that, and people hate you. Whether
I don't know if that's true. I actually don't think that's true. I
mean,
think that's all.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say hate. Like, people are gonna spend their money how they want, and they could, if they want to spend more, like $10 more. I don't really care, but it's just irksome to pay more than $60 for a video game. With stuff like mostly stuff I don't ever want or need or will use or care about.
Only true in the context of like the internet, because if you look at how well these games sell, I think the games sell extremely well. They're obviously selling extremely well. So how do we know that $70 is actually a bad price point? I don't know. Look at COD, Ubisoft, Diablo 4. Yeah, exactly. Like, they just keep doing it. I would never buy 70 plus games. $70 plus for no microtransactions or pay to win is totally fine in my opinion. I think that there are a lot of games that, like, realistically people would pay more than $70 for. But the truth is that a lot of the ways that these companies create value and add things into the game are just simply not things that gamers care about. That's the biggest issue.
Yeah.
they feel it's worth it or not.
Do
The
not care.
problem is
Yeah.
this. The ones saying this, unfortunately, don't matter. As awful as that is, because there's multitudes of people that are just buying the games anyway. An insane number
Yep, there it is.
of
Yep.
people that don't
Yeah.
take any part in online discourse, don't take any part.
You know, they outweigh, like the minority who actually, like just, not the minority, but just like the lesser amount of people who want changes or want a better game, want like actual change, like developers listening to the players, all that crap. Like,
These are the kind of guys that during 2021, 2022, they're thinking to themselves, man, whatever happened to BlizzCon? Well, they should do another one of those. I remember back in the day, they used to announce the expansions back then. Whatever happened to that? Shit, that's me. Yeah, exactly. They got no fucking idea because they're a fucking electrician. They're working, I don't know, they're a truck driver. They're not paying attention to this shit. Yeah, where's E3? Yeah, when are they gonna do another E3? Got canceled 2 years ago? No, that's too bad. That's it. So yeah, most people don't care. Yeah, and that's the reason why these game companies are able to do this, is because there's just such a large amount of the audience that's uneducated, right? And not engaged. And also, like, I'm not using this as a pejorative, because these are people who just simply don't care. And I don't think they're obligated to care.
Part in talking about $70 game, don't take any part in any of this, and just buy the $100+ copies every time. You will find very quickly that the double down versions of games, instead of the $70 version, the $110 version, you'll find that these ones sell more than these ones almost every time.
The worst part about this, oh god. Wait, why? Because people are stupid.
yeah.
That's why. And I will give you one point on the graph that proves what he's saying. I don't know if he's going to use this as an example. It seems like he is not. Here's a great example. They have a trending list and the most popular games list for, I think it's in Japan, or it was some other place. And the Assassin's Creed $120 or $30 edition was selling at a higher point on the power ranking level than the base game. And this happened in like the past 2 months. There it is. The problem, I actually think, is not with the price. I think that if people are unhappy with the price of something, in a lot of cases, the solution actually isn't to reduce the price. It's to change the value proposition. People are unhappy with $70 games because they think they're only going to get 40 hours of entertainment out of them. I think people would be fine paying $70 for a Baldur's Gate 3 or an Elden Ring. I think so. I think they would be. I know some people are going to say no, but I think they're lying. I don't think that's true. I think that many people would be completely okay with it, or more, right? Exactly. And there are many games like this. The problem is not the price, it's the value. And the value for these high-end games does not match what they're asking for.
And if it is a $70 game, it'll likely have MTX in it that will end up making it sell more than this every time. The reason that the business model works this way is because people spend money on it. This is normal business for the games industry.
Well, it's obvious, right? It's like everybody hates microtransactions, but they keep doing them. I wonder why that is. Why would they? Why would this keep? How does this keep happening? What a fucking mystery.
And I reject the shit out of it. Why do you think our game is
There's a lot of
$10?
dummies out there
And
just
it won't
spending
have
money on
a
it.
sequel, and it won't have a prequel, and it won't have chapters, and it won't have DLC, and it won't have
Hence the reason why gacha games exist.
microtransactions. That's why it's $10, because I hate this business model. I hate it. I think it's-
$70.
and I don't want to perpetuate it, even if it would make me more money, because it's not good for the industry. So I can't convince people to stop buying games like this. I can just stop.
Well, the problem is that, like, even if everybody on the internet does that, there's just, again, this, like, huge majority of people. Like, and this is what happened. I apologize for doing something, like, you know, crossing over into, like, political territory with this. But do you remember when everybody thought on the internet Bernie Sanders was going to just completely clean sweep the Democratic nomination? And then all of the boomers bust over from their church group, came and voted for Biden? Those boomers are buying $110 games. People on the internet have a massive, like echo chamber. There's a huge echo chamber on the internet. Everybody thinks this. No, everybody does not think this. This is a small contingency of people on the internet that think this.
Selling games in that way and succeed in spite of that. So are sequels bad?
It's like here. Where is it? Echo.
That's right.
No, but if making episodic content, it's not good for the game a lot of the times. I'll give you an example. Let's say that your base game is $10 and you release a DLC for $5, and then you release a DLC for $5 and you release a deal.
Let's say you're Destiny 2.
DLC for $5. As a player, you bought it for $10, and a new DLC comes out 3 months later. It's only $5, so you buy it, and then another one 3 months later. Well, it's only $5, so you bought it, and then another one 3 months later. It's only $5, so you buy it, right? You just keep doing this. Now, let's say that you tell your friend, "Hey, man, this game is really good," and your friend's like, "Oh, how much was it?" And you're like, "Oh, it's $10." And your friend goes to look at it, and he goes, "That's not $10." Now you get a $25 game. So new players are de-incentivized from jumping in, but old players feel like.
Yeah, and he worked at Blizzard, so he knows how this happened with WoW, too. Like, this is a big thing. Like, how many of you guys with WoW were like, I don't want to get into the game because there's like 4 expansions I need to buy. It's too much. Yeah, exactly.
They got good value, and they didn't pay that much. Except they're both paying the same amount. It's a marketing strategy that preys on your inability to do math, or inability to assign value over time. That's the issue. So, like, not a fan of it. Really not a fan.
I don't even think that it's bad. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that strategy fundamentally, because if you create more content for the game, then I think that you're entitled to charge money for it. I just think that it basically increases the barrier to entry for a new person to become a fan of your game over time, which is bad. Just if you look at your game as an ecosystem, it's bad. Like, it just makes your game harder to approach as a new player. Like, I don't even need to get into the ethics for it. I think it's just, it's just bad. But they kill the old content? Oh, I don't know about that. I think it depends on the game. There's a lot that do that, though. We're aware of this tactic, but we still buy DLCs to support the great games. No, I think it's okay. I think really this is a problem it's kind of like an own goal that developers can do on themselves, where they make their game unapproachable by adding in so many extra things. Like, I think, you know, I was making the joke about Destiny. I'm going to pull it up real quick and show you guys how bad it is. So if I look at Destiny 2, content for this game: The Final Shape, Echo Silver Bundle, Lightfall, The Witch Queen, Beyond the Light Pack, Shadowkeep Pack, Forsaken Pack, Triumphant Silver Pack, Throne of Anthon. Add all DLC to cart, $293. This is a crazy amount of money. And you have to keep in mind, I'm sure there's going to be some Destiny fans in chat that are going to say, well, you don't need to buy all of those. Okay, how do I know that? As a new prospective player with no knowledge or information about the topic, how do I know that? Yes, you do? Yeah, I don't know that, right? And so that's one of the big reasons why, like, for example, if Destiny 3 comes out, I'm going to play it. Fuck yeah, I'm going to play it. I want to play it. But Destiny 2 is just, it's so unapproachable. I'm not going to try to figure all this out. I barely did it for Final Fantasy XIV, and that was a huge headache in itself. Look at The Sims 4. Yeah, sure, I can do that. Give me a second. Let me pull it up. Sims 4. Oh, it's a free game. Oh, man, that's bad. Oh, that's real bad.
Jesus, how much is that? Gee, oh my god, that's
It's
so
a
much.
free game? It's only $800. With all the discounts, yes. And so you keep in mind, like, so whenever I see a game like that, I immediately think to myself, well, I don't want to buy this. Like, I don't want to get into this. This is too much. How many of you guys have been like that with a game? It's like the moment that you see, like, okay, it's like, oh my god, now I have to think about this. It's too much. Yeah.
If I'm going to release new content for Heartbound, I'm just going to patch it into the game, like I always have. No reason not to. What thoughts on expansions then for games? I only like expansions for live service games a lot of the times.
And one developer that did that was Capcom. Capcom patched a ton of new stuff into Monster Hunter Iceborne after the fact with no extra cost. They do have the game monetized in a few silly ways, but overall it's not pay to win or anything like that. So there are developers that do this. And Elden Ring did it as well with the Coliseum update.
Like, I really only like expansions for live service games. I don't like expansions a lot of the time outside of that. I think they're kind of gross. Like, if you're doing a single player game, the only time I'd say an expansion makes sense is like if you're adding another campaign to it. Live service game does make sense for expansions because that ends up being kind of a good deal. But yeah.
I think that expansions are okay. I think the problem is when... I think that, again, it all goes back to the value proposition. Like, if the value proposition is bad and people don't like what they're getting out of the game, then they're going to be pissed. I don't think anybody was complaining about the DLC for Elden Ring or Witcher 3, but they would complain about DLC that's like super bare bones. So yeah, it's all about the value that people see in it.
It's pretty rare that single player games get expansions that make sense. It's pretty rare. What about the infamous Oblivion Horse Armor DLC? I think it's ass. Like, obviously. Not a fan of that. Risk of Rain? Risk of Rain wasn't an expansion. That was a totally new game. Risk of Rain to Risk of Rain 2 is a completely different video game. That's fine. What about Vampire Survivors? I actually don't like Vampire Survivors. I didn't like the fact that they went from a $3 game and then sold millions of copies and then made it $5. Like, why? Why did they do that? There's no reason for that shit. Makes no sense. Bro gets mad from $2 game to $5 game? Yeah. Do you know why? Because there's no reason for that. If you have a $3 game and it sells millions of copies, and then you change that price to $5, you have a small team that has more money than they'll ever need, and you've changed the price to $5 after it becomes popular. If I took my game that was $10 and I made it $12 after it became popular, would you feel good about that? You'd hate it, just like I do. It's like, because there's no reason for it. The only time that we...
I think that it's okay for people to make money and try to do that. It's fine if they want to do that, as long as the game provides a good value. And I think that's the decision that everybody has to make. And it's the same as, like, also, if you're making a $3 game or a $5 game, I don't really think it's, like, that big of a deal. And if the price of something goes up slightly, I think that's reasonable, especially for the for inflation, for sure. Yeah, it's not a big deal. But if you're selling the same game for that much time and you're adding new content into it, I don't know. That's okay. Yeah, exactly. Not for fast food. Oh, yeah, sometimes.
ever have to change prices is when there's dramatic shifts in the valuation of individual currencies. Currency exchange rates is the only time we have to raise prices, because sometimes currency exchange rates go crazy, which is exactly what happened with Argentina, right? Like, that sucks. There's nothing we can do about it at that point. We're like,
it's crazy how many gold farmers now are from South America. I saw that in Wrath of the Lich King Classic. There's actually even maybe it was Burning Crusade. You've got what it's like to be poor. I think that if you can't afford a $3 or a $5 game, and that's a big problem for you, that's the least problem in your life, realistically. Like, if you're actually getting mad about the price difference to that, like, let's be honest here, okay? What are you doing?
Like, suddenly, like, a currency just inflates to and is not worth anything anymore. Like, we have to take action. There's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
That's the only time that I think that's appropriate. That's the only time, and it's a global finance issue. Yeah, global finances go wacky. Bingo. Price your game in line with the gold standard? No, that's not really how that works. The way that you have to price your game, no matter what, man, is based on people's expendable income. You're making an entertainment piece. That's what that is. It's an entertainment piece. People don't need to buy your...
I think that's the problem. The problem is that they're pricing it based off of what people can spend. That's why you have gacha games. It is insane.
Game. They don't have to. So you have to price it based on people's expendable income inside of that area. Disposable income is what you're targeting. What about board member bonuses? Gross. Yeah, it's gross. No, you don't have to buy it. I price ours based on a Big Mac. It's about a Big Mac and a half. Yeah. You want people to buy... What is this? You want people to buy your product? Make it affordable. Bingo. Yes. Make it affordable for each region, too. Always make it affordable for each region. You have to think about what the economics are of each region that you're selling the game in, and you have to think about specifically...
It's actually crazy. I remember whenever I first learned about this was in, like, I think Mists of Pandaria, and I don't remember what year it is. You know, in general, I basically base things off of what WoW expansion it was in whenever I learned something or knew something or something happened. I remember in Mists of Pandaria, I learned about how much different the pricing was in, like, South America, and it was nuts, man. Holy fucking shit. It was over, like, it's like $100 at that point just to buy WoW comparatively. It was insane. Kind of hate that prices are so different. Yeah, and that's whenever I think that it might not have been then, but that's whenever I became aware that Blizzard changed their prices massively in those other places. But that's whenever I became aware that Blizzard
how much disposable income people in that region have? Yeah, regional pricing. Always regional pricing.
But that's whenever I became aware.
And then you price it appropriately
how
based
much
on disposable. It's very easy. It just takes a little bit of effort, right? Are you in favor of microtransactions?
That sounds awful.
In the game, if the game is free? I'm in favor of microtransactions if they are cosmetic in nature and nothing else. There's no reason for it. There's no reason for anything else. I'm in cosmetics favor of microtransactions if you make the art for your game. Shame it. There's no reason for
I mean, I think that really... I think that's the way that most people see it, and there are games that... I think that really... I think that's the way that most people see it, and there are games that... I think that really... I think that's the way that most people see it, and... have access to a tool in the game. So, yeah, I mean, cosmetics and like microtransactions for free-to-play games, you can't have a free-to-play game if you don't have that, right? Unless you're making people watch it. For free-to-play games, you can't have a free-to-play game if you don't have that. Ads.
Makes all the art and animation for Hardbound. I do the technical art, which is particle effects, shadows, lighting, stuff like that. Sony priced Helldivers to 0 in some reason? No, they didn't price Helldivers to 0 in some regions. They made it unpurchasable in some regions. Those are two very different things. Yeah. No, 0 would be free. Lol, same thing? No, 0 would be free.
Yeah.
They turned it... What they did was they took a selling video game and instead of...
Are people... I'm so happy to see this. What a stupid fucking thing to say. Selling it for $0 is the same thing as not selling it. I love seeing streamers get like, cause chatters will create like this, it's like the dumbest dichotomy that you can ever it's like you can't even imagine that somebody could believe this. It's like, what? Like, wait, no. Like you gotta take a step back and just realize, did somebody really fucking say this shit? I got you. Yeah. Oh my god.
Applied a 5-finger discount to everybody who wanted to go the extra mile. It's probably the greatest advertisement to piracy I've ever seen in my life. Insane to watch.
Yeah, I think that's what happens. Let me go ahead and link you guys the video. I didn't get a chance to see this one. Let me see here. Yeah, I think he's right a lot about this stuff with like the games being expensive. I don't think that it's a problem that games are expensive. I think the big problem is the fact that games are not providing a value that people think that they should. I think that's the big issue. What?
Unnecessarily expensive. Bunch of fucking fluff and shiny things. Bro. Yeah.
Whether a game is
not doing it.
$3 or $5, $60 or
Refuse
$70. I think that the real reason why people get angry about it is the fact that the game quality is bad. And the game quality, it's like the trailers come out and the game doesn't really have any the game doesn't have any sort of like real new interesting things. The gameplay is mediocre, and it's like, yeah, by the way, like we have all these really cool cutscenes, but there's hardly any gameplay. So that's really the issue. $1 per enjoyment, right? There's no possible value for a $130 game for me. There's no possible value for a $130 game for me. Well, I'll tell you this, right? A lot of people that watch me have probably played WoW, right? Because I played WoW. I bet a lot of people that say that have spent over $130 collectively playing WoW. Again, it is not about the money. It's about the value proposition. And the value proposition is just fucked. That's all there is to it. My lifetime spend, easy over. Yeah, exactly. Of course I was. Yeah, one Valorant's good. Yeah, if it's all digital content like physical collectors, that's probably worth it. Yeah, of course. WoW's an infinite money sink if you want it to be. Yeah, it is. How much do you think GTA 6 will be? I don't... I think that if they price it at $100, the worst thing about Grand Theft Auto 6 being priced at $100, theoretically, will be that other companies start trying to do the same thing. Because I think that if they price it at $100, a lot of people will still buy it. Like a massive amount of people will still buy it. But it's like once they do that and they, there's like a phrase to say, break the ice, then you're going to see everybody else doing the same thing. Bethesda for sure with the next Elder Scrolls? I don't think so. I mean, I really don't. And then after like Starfield and like all the drama with Fallout and everything, I highly doubt they're going to go for a play like that. But who knows? Yeah, open the floodgates, exactly. What if they do a subscription to play GTA 6? Well, I mean, we'll see what happens. But either way, I think that something being overpriced...
You'd hate it.
Like, I think especially, this is like an especially big thing with regional pricing, that you just can't take this into consideration. But I'm talking about like in Western first world countries. The main reason why people don't want to spend money on these games and buy these expensive games is because the value is not there. And also, that's only the people on the internet. Because if you look at the top selling charts in a lot of these games, it seems like these games are selling extremely well. Even the $110 versions are selling more than the $70 ones. How the fuck does this happen? I don't even know. People have wanted me to watch this for a while. Apparently, there's been some Ubisoft devs that have talked behind the scenes about how things are going, and it doesn't seem like it's very good.
Things at Ubisoft are far worse than I ever could have imagined. After my last video chronicling the rise and fall of Ubisoft, I had both current and former Ubisoft developers reach out for comment.
Of course they do.
Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about the issues that the studios face today from the perspective of their own employees. Everything from Me Too movement allegations to agenda-driven content.
Well, it wasn't a Me Too movement allegation. Ubisoft went through an entire lawsuit process because of that.
I want to contrast the comments made in these interviews with what we've seen from Assassin's Creed Shadows and Star Wars Outlaws.
Yeah.
This company has a deep-rooted leadership issue, going as far to think that the vast majority of online criticism is just a toxic minority of gamers.
Of course.
This company and its leadership think that they are on the righteous path. Little do they know, it's a dead end.
That sounds so stupid, but I believe it. And the reason why I believe it is because the CEO cited critic reviews for their games as a barometer for what the game's reception was. Like, I don't want to believe this, but I feel like I have to.
Assassin's Creed Shadows has been steeped in controversy and criticism since its initial reveal. Online discourse surrounding the game has been almost entirely negative, with long-term fans of the franchise, general audience, and Japanese audiences up in arms over the creative liberties that Ubisoft has taken with the depiction
really
of
nice,
Yasuke,
which
the
is
fabled
sad.
Black Samurai, and feudal Japan. Japanese creators, as well as just random bystanders, have taken to Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube and Reddit, voicing their concerns offended by the game's representation of their history and culture. Inaccuracies like using Chinese architecture instead of Japanese, the legitimacy and relevance of the game's protagonist Yasuke, and even going as far as stealing a flag and imagery from the Sekihara Teppo Tai, a historical reenactment group where the company had to formally apologize for not asking for permission to use their materials. Ubisoft
White people just never stop colonizing. It's just what we do. Yeah, bro, we just can't help ourselves. We just can't stop. We have to keep doing it.
Ubisoft's
Oh my
adventure into
God.
Japanese history has been a complete disaster, and it's only going to get worse.
Yeah.
On September 11th of 2024, an article was penned by the New York Times titled "The Fight Over a Black Samurai in Assassin's Creed." The writer, Zachary Small, misrepresents the controversy and player concerns as merely those of a toxic minority of angry Western gamers, and the entire time he fixates on the race of Yasuke and not the broader implications at play in Ubisoft's mishandling and the break disrespect for Japanese culture and history. This article was a collaboration between Ubisoft and the New York Times in an attempt to redirect the discussions surrounding Assassin's Creed Shadows and minimize the feedback. The writer spoke with Kazuma Hashimoto, a consultant and translator for the games industry, later to be found out to be an employee of Sweet Baby Incorporated that did consultant work for Ubisoft. But
there's no bias, there's no agenda here at all, guys. Yeah, they're just reporting the facts.
Hashimoto claimed that it was people in the West who were upset with seeing Yasuke as a samurai, and that many of the online negative comments were written in Japanese appeared to be roughly translated from English.
True. Actually true. And this is what journalists excel at. Journalists excel at telling half-truths, but focusing on the lie.
Hand-waving the increasingly loud and valid concerns of the Japanese, asserting that it's all made-up outrage. Nothing more than the gamers' war against DEI or inclusivity in video games. I find it all too poetic and predictable for a AAA publisher to brush off player concerns and use their connections in the media to try to steer public discourse and sentiment into a favorable direction. All of these claims made by the New York Times as well as other writers are patently false. You can
The problem is that I think this is a big issue, is that like traditional like print media is losing a lot of its relevance, and I think it's accelerating that loss. And I think that really like they're getting eaten from like so many different perspectives. Like for example, people's literacy levels and ability to read information, I think, is going down. Like, people are just bad at reading now. They can't read. And not only can they not read, but even if they could read, they don't have the attention span if to even want to read. So basically, they don't give a shit. Kids barely speak nowadays, exactly. So you have like a lower amount of people that you can reach fundamentally, right, because of that. And then you also have the issue where people are so radicalized about ideologies that they're unwilling to like listen to anything other than like what they've already heard. And I think that you put all of these problems together, and guess what you have? You have an audience of people, and then also, of course, like the media is, of course, like misrepresenting things. And I think that also one of the big problems the internet has presented for the media is that, like, you know, in the year 1985, the channels of broadcast were very limited. And so you couldn't really have a real contrary opinion because so many of these channels were monopolized by billion-dollar forces. But now on the internet, you can see things like WikiLeaks and stuff like that that can hold big corporations and big entities accountable in ways that they can't control. And I think this can be as big as something like WikiLeaks, or it can be in as little as something like this video game. And ultimately, that has done more to damage the credibility of print media than anything else, because it's shown that print media is oftentimes used as a tool for these organizations to maintain their power structure.
The criticisms of Ubisoft's recent releases and the future release in Assassin's Creed Shadows everywhere. It's impossible to ignore. Videos and promotional material ratioed by dislikes and comments in mass numbers. Videos like mine and many others reaching widespread appeal because we have that many people that agree or share similar opinions. With that said, I couldn't imagine that it was...
I think also it's that he brings up a very good point that seems very stupid and face value, but I think it's incredibly accurate, is that when you see videos that are extremely successful and get tons of views that agree with you, it makes people think that they're not crazy and that their opinions are valid. I think that's the reason why YouTube removed the dislike bar, because the dislike bar was used against things that, you know, I would say brands didn't want to see happen. Like, because if you see, oh, everybody else hates this, how many of you guys have ever read an article or done something and like you think the article's awful, and then the main top comment is saying exactly what you think, and it's like, yes, thank God I'm not crazy. Have you guys ever had this happen? Yeah, the dislike bar hurt tutorials though? No, it did, but it hurt everything. Right, exactly. And so we have this happen a lot. And I think what the outcome of that is that people are able to see that the like mainstream, I guess you could say, quote, narrative is not really the mainstream. It's just the most pushed.
Possible for anyone to ignore this level of feedback, and Ubisoft has to be seeing it. So I spoke with a few developers from Ubisoft to shed some light on these issues. I started off by asking how Ubisoft internalizes and discusses general criticism from players and the rest of the industry, whether that's its repetitive design, agenda-driven content, or predictable games. They responded saying, at a high level, they rarely talk about it. At a project level, they brush it off as toxic gamer talk. As Asmongold correctly pointed out in a video of his, Ubisoft is filled with toxic positivity that prevents any growth.
How about that?
Design, agenda-driven content.
How about that? That's crazy. People always wonder, why is it that everybody watches me? This is the reason why. Because I've been fucking right. Yeah, I've been right. That's why. And also, by the way, I don't think that I'm being totally honest. I actually don't think that I'm like incredibly intelligent. But what I think that I do have is I have an insanely good memory, and I can make decisions on things based off of more factors than the average person can. And because of that, if I see something like this, I can think of more things in the past, like, oh yeah, this other thing. I put all that together, and I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. But this is why people watch the videos. Ego going up? It is. Absolutely. But I was right.
I then asked, what about the Japanese community's backlash over Assassin's Creed Shadows? It's obvious that they haven't done their research, and even the smallest details are going to be noticed by a culture that's as proud as the Japanese.
Of course.
They responded by saying that the criticisms haven't been talked about, and they've only issued demands that we mustn't engage with discussion on that topic publicly.
Just don't talk about it. Problem solved.
Meaning everything that we've said up into this point, all the criticism that we've had over the years for Ubisoft games, even that of the industry itself, has fallen on deaf ears. I don't know if it's sad or if it's somewhat, it's somewhat cathartic to have that validated. I mean, it's the main complaint.
Well, it's obvious. I mean, again, like, you don't have to be a fucking genius to admit this or to acknowledge this. I feel like, again, you know, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. I feel like that's how I feel a lot of times saying this stuff. I don't think this is any sort of fucking revelation. This isn't any sort of like, wow, this is some divine insight that's brought to me in a dream. No, it's common fucking sense this would happen. Of course.
That the vast majority of gamers have had over the years, which is that these companies aren't listening to us. And in this case, I have developers that are telling me, yeah, they're not listening to you.
Of course.
One, because they don't want to take criticism, and two, because they don't know how to differentiate bad from good criticism.
Of course.
I think this is my patented catchphrase by now, but when you have this much negative discourse surrounding your games, you need to be listening. Regardless of whether or not it's good or bad feedback in your eyes, regardless if you align with these people's political beliefs or social political beliefs.
This is a problem that a lot of artists have, and it's a problem that I think that artists that are trying to exist in a commercial space have, because a lot of artists believe in the moral good of whatever art they're making. Like, very few artists believe that they're actually like morally bad people. And so because they think that they're doing a good thing, well, they view anybody who's criticizing them as a morally bad person. I think that's what happens the most. Is it arrogance? Well, it's arrogance, but like it's a simplification. What I'm saying is that artists view their art as a expression of themselves. And in the process of them feeling it like an expression of themselves, they take criticism against it personally, and it's why they have a harder time listening to feedback and criticism.
Whatever it might be. None of that matters. When you have your games on fire as much as Ubisoft games have been lately, you need to put those fires out somehow. And the only way that you can do that is by listening to them.
Yeah, of course.
And implementing whatever feedback you possibly can into your games to make them better. Regardless, the other thing is, I'm sorry. I am disgusted by the blatant, feigned virtue over how much they care about Japanese culture and history. I'm sorry. You are bastardizing Japanese culture and history for profit. That...
As I said, bro, like, we're white people, right? This is what we do. We take over somebody's culture, we change it, and then we say, thank God for us. We've saved you. We've saved you from yourselves.
And
This is what we do.
and that was.
We've been doing it for a really long
be
time,
saved.
and it's just happening again.
It's what you're trying to do here. You're not trying to make a history piece. We know
It's a
that. It's
generalization.
loosely based on, very loosely based on Japanese culture and history. Look at you guys. You put out a Torii Gate figurine, a half Torii Gate figurine with...
They had so much to choose from with, like, Japanese culture. Like, There's so much. So much. And they had to go with like the token Black Samurai. Like I'm all for that, like, but like when it comes to like a homogenized like culture that's been very like for a majority of its time like very xenophobic, so to speak. I can put that in quotations just to say it, just like, but at various points in time, but not always. But they're like Japanese are Japanese, like they're just I just don't get it. Like you play like Shogun Total War, and yeah, you have two different periods where you can play in, and it was perfect. Like you never saw like anything that we have like portrayed as their culture, and I don't know why. Like you have a good thing and you just ruin it.
With your characters on it, without knowing the cultural relevance of the Half-Torii Gate, after
Got destroyed in World War II.
Hiroshima and Nagasaki, do you have any idea what that means to these people?
They use Tectone as a consultant for this.
What's wrong with you? At the end of the day, it all comes down to leadership.
It's actually very easy to understand what's wrong with them. There are people that are bored. They have a tremendous sense of internalized guilt, and they think by doing this kind of stuff, they're being a good person. Once you understand that most people's actions are only taken in order to make themselves feel better or to serve some personal goal, then as soon as you figure that out and you start operating under that pretense, everything else that a person does makes immediate sense. Pepega, I'm helping. Yeah, exactly. It's self-righteousness. Exactly it is.
You know, if people don't do good like a lot of people I know don't do good things just to do them because it feels right. They just want to do them to like feel better about themselves or feel like they did something good because for reasons. Just do good. Just do good to people, and good things will happen to you. Like, you don't need to expect anything in return. You don't even need to thank you. Just be good. Do good. Like, yeah, there's a duality to man, but we all have a dark side. But you don't have to give into it and then make other people's lives worse, or do something shitty, or just do something that has an agenda. Or fills a hole within you, or makes you feel better, just just don't be an asshole. Just don't be an asshole. That's all I'm saying. Like, sometimes I want to be. Sometimes people deserve it, but like kind people are always kind, even when it's hard. And I'm quoting that from something, if you know what it is from. But
When you look at Ubisoft's messaging, the lackluster delivery of titles like X-Defiant and Star Wars Outlaws, the inaccuracies and screw-ups with Assassin's Creed Shadows, you see a developer that has no clear plan or vision